Welcome to episode number 4 of More Disney. I am your host, Michael Babcock. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more content. I have been I've been thinking about more topics to talk about. Now I want to talk about a topic that is probably a little bit controversial. A lot of people have different opinions on this subject. So I want to discuss who is the better CEO of the Walt Disney Company. All right. Obviously, Walt Disney started the company. Though he was not the CEO of the company. He didn't even own. He was not in charge of his company. All right. That was his brother Roy, who was actually the CEO of the company. And then when both Walt and brother Roy passed away, there was a couple of other folks in charge of the company. But I want to talk about two of the, well, I mean, I guess you really could say three, but I want to talk about two of the two important people right now. Certainly, Michael Eisner was really the one who brought the Walt Disney Company back. He's the one that really saved the company in a way. He's the one that we have a lot to be thankful for. He's he leaded the animation renaissance, and he also got to build Disney's MGM Studios. So Michael Eisner really deserves a lot of credit. But the two I want to talk about are, of course, Bob Iger, who took over the position from Michael Eisner in 2005. So Bob Iger took the role of CEO in 2005. He, in my opinion, I think that he really kind of, he was a big Disney fan. He really understood, the Walt Disney Company, and how to make it more profitable, and everything. He's the one that got them into streaming. He built Shanghai Disneyland. That was his resort that he got to build. I really wouldn't say like animated movies. He was, I don't really think, a lot of great Disney movies were during his time. That had kind of run its course when he came into the role of CEO. The second, well, if you want to call it the third Disney animation renaissance, was from 1989 to 1999. Okay, and then Bob Iger didn't come in until 2005, and the company really kind of struggles a little bit with their animated films. They're not really big hits or anything. So Bob Iger really kind of wanted to focus on the theme parks. He wanted to focus on the theme parks because he saw the theme parks as you know, a very profitable part of the Walt Disney Company. So, you know, he put in a lot of money to to these theme parks, and I really think, and this is going to sound kind of odd, but and this is speaking from his first time as CEO. Okay, his first time as CEO to me was wonderful. I think that he did a lot of great things in the theme parks and really kind of focused on the guest experiences and tried to make the theme parks a great place to visit, and that shows in his time as CEO, okay? And he was CEO from 2005 all the way until 2020. So over 10 years. That's 15 years. He was in the CEO chair. And then in 2020 he decided, or probably even before that, he decided he wanted to retire, and he wanted to pass the baton, if you will, to somebody else. And so they were trying to find a replacement for Iger. Excuse me. And they felt that they had him in Bob Chapek. Okay, Bob Chapek was head of the Parks and Resorts. Okay, so we kind of see that decline a little bit in the Parks and Resorts, because Bob Chapek was not a I wouldn't even call him a Disney fan, much less a Parks fan. He was a money guy. He wanted to know what how much was this costing? Okay, can we get rid of it? Can we, kind of scale back stuff? Okay, so he was in Parks and Resorts, and then when Bob Iger decided to retire from the company, they the board of directors decided to pick Bob Chapek as his successor. I don't know why, but they did. So anyway, in 2020, Bob Chapek becomes CEO of the Walt Disney Company, and is therefore tasked with and this is not bad. This part was not Chapek's fault. He, how are you going to know that you're going to be faced with a terrible pandemic and everything? So what happens is Bob Chapek gets put in the CEO chair, and then COVID-19 pandemic happens, and the world has changed. The parks get shut down. A lot of people get laid off from the company, and then and then when the park started to slowly reopen again, Bob Chapek was the one who was overseeing what the parks were going to be like. And he came out with a lot of bad things, for the company. Okay, when during the first, when the parks first reopened after the pandemic, I used to think that the reservation system was a good thing, because it was limiting capacity, and it was trying to make the parks more breathable during this difficult time. So I kind of like that. This is gonna sound bad, but I kind of liked that reservation system, because you knew the parks weren't going to be overcrowded at any time. And but the bad thing was, the entertainment. He decided to cut all of the live entertainment out of the theme parks. They were gone. Okay, I don't know if it was something happened between him and the unions of the Disney parks. I don't know that. But whether it was a money thing or not, he decided to cut the all of the theme park live entertainment. So that was gone. No more. Okay? And so, the parks reopened after, slowly but surely. And in the beginning, it made sense not to have live entertainment, because you didn't want obviously crowds in a certain spot, and you had to keep people distanced and everything, and that included the cast members, that included the performers as well. Okay, so that really made sense. But then as time started to go on and on and on and on and on, we were figuring out, why is there, no live entertainment coming back. Okay, and then we learned, that Bob Chapek had cut that live entertainment. He was like, this is costing us way too much money. We really need to get rid of this live entertainment. So he cut, all of the live entertainment, and then people started to get upset. People started to get really angry, and was like, rides and food do not a theme park make. Okay? They were like, we have to have some kind of live entertainment. It's, because, again, just having rides and food does not a theme park make. So he was really kind of forced to, give people some live entertainment back. He didn't want a lot of it to come back, because again, that was money that he didn't want to spend. So we got things like the Disney Society Orchestra. We got things like the cavalcades and the little mini parades. Because those were a lot less cost heavy. They didn't cost a lot of money to have these little mini parades, or these tiny little shows. Okay, and then again, as time started to move on, and the world kind of got over that COVID, the COVID-19, the pandemic part of it, and was starting to travel more. Then it became evident that, the crowds are coming back. The crowds are coming back. We really need, a lot of that live entertainment to come back. And Bob was, Chapek was very, he didn't want to do that. He did not want to do that. That was, again, that was money that was costing him. And he was really forced to bring that live entertainment back. He was forced to bring that back because, the guest demand was so high that he was like, okay, if we have to, we have to, So we started seeing things come back. Frozen, for the first time in forever, Frozen, a sing-along celebration returned. And then Beauty and the Beast, live on stage, came back. And then slowly but surely, Indiana Jones came back. Festival, or, Mickey's Magical Friendship Fair came back. Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor came back. A lot of, the Voices of Liberty came back. A lot of the unionized performers started to come back. They started to come back because, and which was great, which was fantastic. Okay. And then the parade started to come back. The fireworks decided to come back. And this is not necessarily in order, but, everything started to come back. Phantasmic finally came back. Everything came back. So, it was great to finally have all of that stuff that we lost, back in the parks, okay? And then in the beginning, it was kind of like, it was social distance because, again, it was, I don't know if that was a union thing or if that was a Disney thing. Somewhere along the lines, the guests had to wear face masks, but the performers didn't. Okay? So that made it really hard to, bring things back as well. And again, I don't know if that was a union thing. I don't know if that was a Disney thing. I have no idea. I really don't know. If anyone knows that, please please comment, because I don't know. In my head, it would make sense for the union to say, look, if you want our people to come back, we want them to have face masks, we want them to be social distanced and everything. So that would make more sense to me than Disney would say, if we're going to bring your performers back if they're have face masks and social distancing. Okay, I can see Disney saying absolutely not. Okay, that ruins the magic if the characters are wearing face masks. Okay, so I don't know. It would just seem to me that it would be it would have been a union thing, much less a Disney thing, but I don't know. I have no idea. So if anyone knows that, please send me a message, because that I don't know. That I really have no idea. Okay. So anyway, things started to come back and everything. The parks were moving forward, and slowly but surely they open up more capacity. So people start to come back after a long time. But I don't think that it's I don't think it's anywhere near the numbers that were pre-pandemic. I don't know. Maybe I am wrong. I don't know. But anyway, they start opening up things. Things start to turn back to normal and everything. And then the company gets into trouble. The company gets into trouble. Florida passed their parental act, and the parental. I can't even think. I can't even remember the name of it, but it was called "Don't Say Gay" bill. It was called the "Don't Say Gay" bill. Okay, which limited the talks of gender and diversity in schools, and a lot of Disney cast members were protesting this. They got into contact with Bob Chapek about it, and Bob Chapek called Ron DeSantis and said, "Hey, look, I have all of these employees, protesting against the company because of the Don't Say Gay bill, and I really don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. Can you help me on this?" And Ron DeSantis basically, he said, "Don't worry about it." He said, It's gonna die down, okay? Just give it time, don't say anything. It's gonna die down. It's gonna die down. It's just gonna take time, okay? So Bob Chapek, that was the end of the conversation. That was that. Disney kept quiet. And then for some reason or another, I don't know what happened. Again, I don't know what happened behind closed doors. I don't know if Bob Chapek was pressured to say something about the bill. I don't know if it was him or if it was the company or something. I have no idea. But then Bob Chapek came out and said that we don't support this bill and we're going to do everything that we can to repeal this bill. Well, that made Ron DeSantis very unhappy. Very, very unhappy. So he retaliated, took away Disney's Reedy Creek, their governing body within Florida, and replaced it with his own board called the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District. And now, and him calling, Disney woke and everything, and said a lot of mean things about the company. A lot of very, there was a lot of, back and forth between Disney and Florida, and what was going to happen and everything, and on top of that, Disney Plus wasn't turning a profit anymore. People were obviously not cooped up inside their houses anymore, so they were doing other things. So Disney Plus lost a lot of money, and that was the reason why the board of directors fired Bob Chapek. It wasn't because of this fight with Florida and everything. It was because of streaming and all of these promises that Bob Chapek had made, and the streaming service wasn't living up to their standards. So they decided to fire Bob Chapek and replace him with someone else. At first, they didn't, and this was after, Walt Disney World, after that battle with that really bad, gruesome battle with Ron DeSantis, all for nothing, really. But it's, after that battle, after really kind of losing that battle to Ron DeSantis, and then kind of losing the profitability of Disney Plus, the board decides to fire Bob Chapek. Okay, and it was a lot of people rejoiced about it, myself included. I'm not going to, argue that fact. And then of course, then Disney had a very tough situation of who to replace Bob Chapek as the CEO. And it's very funny to know that Bob Chapek was only in the CEO chair for 2 years. Okay, that was it. From 2020 to 2022. That was it. Okay, so for only 2 years he was in that chair. But so then they decided who were we going to replace Bob Chapek with. And then they approached Bob Iger to come back. They really wanted him to come back. Iger was very kind of like, I don't know if I really want to come back. Look, I stepped down. I don't know if I want to come back or not. Okay. And again, the board kind of pushed him. And again, I don't know what was said behind closed doors and everything. But anyway, in 2022, Bob Iger comes back. He's now in the CEO chair again, and now he has to try to fix a lot of the stuff that Chapek had ruined. Okay, Chapek had ruined a lot of things. I think most importantly his relationship with Florida. Okay, because Walt Disney World really kind of suffered through this. Okay, they Walt Disney World unfortunately got the brunt of the Chapek administration. Okay, so Iger called Ron DeSantis and basically kind of tried to make amends with this whole Reedy Creek thing, and Ron DeSantis wasn't budging. He was, he's a very stubborn man. He was not budging. He said, "No, you guys have overstepped your authority, and now I'm taking that away from you." Okay, but I think after a while, I think Iger kind of talked DeSantis down just a little bit. I don't know. This whole thing is political. This whole fight between Florida and Walt Disney World is political, and I really hate doing that. I really hate covering it and talking about it because it's just a bunch of political bullshit. That's basically what it is. It's just a bunch of political bullshit. Okay? So, but anyway, Bob Iger comes back and promises to fix a lot of the things. And then, of course, as these things do, they do take time to, the Walt Disney Company, think of it as a big ship. Okay, think of it as a big ship. Okay, and whoever's CEO, if it's in a bad direction, you have to turn it all the way around. Okay, if it's in a good position, obviously you don't want to move, the position of the boat. Okay. But the Walt Disney Company was in such a bad state from the Chapek years. Bob Iger really had to turn that boat around, and it took a long time. It took a long time. I would say it took 3 years for it. Now we're starting to see things getting better, things improving. There's still some core problems. right in the parks, okay? Maintenance is not what it used to be. Cast member attitudes are not what it used to be. I think, and then, the relationship between Florida and Walt Disney World is not what it used to be. I think that a lot of things are still not in a good place. Okay, it is getting better. It is getting better. Okay, Florida's relationship with Walt Disney World, I think, is in a much better place than what it was. And Bob Iger was really smart and realized that, us as a company, we should not just focus on streaming. We should also, again, he was a parks guy. So he's like, we need to invest in our theme parks again, because people want to visit these theme parks. So he wanted to invest a lot of money into the theme parks again. So that's why you have, multiple things coming to Walt Disney World. That's why you have things coming to Disneyland, because of Bob Iger's because he put the money into the theme parks, something that Bob Chapek would have never done in a lifetime. Never. If Bob Chapek was still in the CEO role, we would have never gotten, pretty much half the stuff that we're going to get now. Okay, we probably never would have gotten that Villains Land. We would have never gotten, I think that Dinoland USA would have been demolished anyway. I think that Muppet Vision 3D would have gone away as well anyway, and replaced with that Monsters Inc. themed land. And so that's what I want to clarify. That's what I want to clarify is the Monsters Inc. themed land that's replacing Grand Avenue was not an Iger decision. Bob Iger did not come up with that decision. That was Bob Chapek. Okay? People get so angry about Bob Iger, and they're like, every time that, we post about stories about, us losing Muppet Vision 3D and everything, people jump in and they're like, well, that's what happens, that's why Bob Iger needs to be fired and everything. They tend to forget that was a Bob Chapek decision. He wanted to rip out Muppet Vision 3D and put in, more relevant IP into the park. Okay, so that's a leftover of the Bob Chapek regime. Okay, is getting rid of Muppet Vision 3D and putting in Monsters Inc. themed area. Okay, that's a leftover Chapek decision. Okay, I don't think it should have happened. I definitely think Iger should have looked at that and would have been, and said, we're going to rip out Star Wars Launch Bay because that area is dead anyway. So we need to rip out Launch Bay and the old animation building and the parking garage and everything, and that's where Monsters Inc., the mini-themed area, should go. Okay, instead of ripping out Muppet Vision 3D and taking out Grand Avenue and everything, I think that was very stupid on Iger's part. Okay, it was very, very stupid for him to basically give them the green light to destroy Muppet Vision 3D and Grand Avenue and make that into a Monsters Inc. themed area. Okay, so look, as much as as much as I really wanted Bob Iger to come back as CEO, and as much as I wanted him to, to lead the Walt Disney Company again, I was really excited. Okay? And, having that, the park expansions as well was a great idea. Okay? Again, Bob Chapek never would have done that. He never would have done that. Okay? So, I think, Bob Iger was smart and realized that we need to invest in our theme parks again. Okay? Putting Muppet Vision aside, we need to, focus on our theme parks again. Okay? So, I think, on one hand, I think Iger was very smart about that. On the other hand, I think he was really dumb in, getting rid of Muppet Vision 3D and the whole Grand Avenue section of the park and replacing that with Monsters, Inc. I really think that was a mistake. That was a mistake. Okay, and I will always lament that decision. If they bring back Muppet Vision 3D, okay, if they bring back Muppet Vision 3D and make a new kind of Grand Avenue type area, then I'll quit, I'll quit talking about it and griping about it, okay? If they don't do that, then I'm still going to go on and on and on about it, okay? So, but I truly think that, Bob Iger, is so much better for the Walt Disney Company than Bob Chapek ever was. Okay? Bob Chapek was a numbers guy. He looked at the parks as, no one's visiting these theme parks anymore. Why would I even care about these theme parks? Streaming. That's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on streaming. Okay? So, he was not interested in the parks. He was not, okay? He wanted to focus on the streaming aspect of the company, okay? Sometimes that's not necessarily a bad thing, but, the Walt Disney Company also has theme parks, okay? Whether Chapek liked it or not, he had theme parks connected to the company, okay? But he didn't want to focus on those because he thought that those were not a viable asset to the company, okay? Which I think is sad. We're still dealing with that. Maintenance is still an issue at the parks. I would like maintenance to be like what it was. I think that, the overall cleanliness of the parks are better than what they were, but they still have a long way to go. I posted a picture on Facebook of an overflowing trash can at the Haunted Mansion. And I'm like, what the hell, people? I said, what the hell? I said, are we in the Chapek era still? That should not be happening. All right? So, maintenance is still an issue. Cleanliness is still an issue. But it's getting better. It is getting better, okay? So, I'm not on a particular... I'm always going to be leaning more toward Bob Iger's side more than Bob Chapek's side because, Chapek was just... He was not a good fit. He was not a good fit for the role of CEO of the Walt Disney Company. He just wasn't, okay? So I really, 9 times out of 10, I trust Bob Iger and Josh D'Amaro to lead this behemoth of a company. Okay, there are some things that they don't do right, but when they don't do things right, I'm going to point them out. Getting rid of Muppet Vision 3D. The overall cleanliness of the parks. Okay. The overall cast attitudes in the park. Okay. I'm going to point those things out because those are nowhere near what they used to be in the parks. Okay. But I really think that we, because they're putting so much money into these Walt Disney World theme parks, that it's hard to be upset. It's hard to be upset. Okay, if you exclude Muppet Vision from that conversation, and I don't really like the idea of Zootopia Better Together. I really hate that idea. So those are the two ideas that I really hate. Okay. But put those other two aside, I really think that Villain's Land is going to be really cool. Okay? It's going to be a really cool idea. Replacing the Liberty Square Riverboat and Tom Sawyer Island with those Cars attractions are going to be great. I'm really sad about Dinosaur. I am really sad about that. But then again, I'm really interested about this Indiana Jones attraction that's going to replace it. So I can't really be mad about that. But so much good stuff is happening to me. In my opinion, so much good things are happening in these theme parks. Okay. A lot of, some things are still not good. We never got the Citizens of Hollywood back. We're getting, we never got them back. Muppet Vision 3D is going away. The overall cleanliness of the parks are not what they used to be. The cast members are not not as friendly as they used to be. Things are, we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go. But I am really optimistic about, what the future holds for some things at these parks. Okay. I really am hopeful that these attractions that open are going to be exciting. I really think they're going to be exciting because this regime really knows what they're doing. Some of the time, okay? But, Iger knows how to spend the money, okay? Tiana's Bayou Adventure, that's another perfect example, okay? Tiana's Bayou Adventure was a product of the Chapek administration, okay? And when that ride was in development, they were going to rip out all those animatronics and they were just going to put in screens. Okay, that would have been a screen-heavy based ride. And then Bob Iger comes in, puts more money into it, and we got fantastic-looking animatronics. It's a great ride. I think people complain way too much about it. They just miss Splash Mountain, But, had the ride been garbage, and had the ride been, what it was going to be under Chapek, I would have joined in that conversation. I definitely would have joined in that conversation and been like, look, this is cheap garbage. How dare you do that? How dare you take a ride like Splash Mountain and reduce it to basically crap, okay? But I can't be mad about Tiana's Bayou Adventure. I can't. The animatronics are awesome. The storyline is through and solid. You understand what's going on throughout the whole story. You know, there's a wonderful song at the end. I cannot be unhappy with Tiana's Bayou Adventure. I just can't. That would be illogical for me to do that. Okay? Whereas, you know, take a ride like Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which was a complete direction of Chapek. Okay, you see the effects of that regime. You see very bad animatronics. There's nothing wrong with the story. There is nothing wrong with that story, but they did not time that attraction out right. So you're in the last car, and you miss 2/3 of that story. Okay, so the animatronics look like garbage. The ride is not well timed out right. The song they got right. That was the only thing right that they got in that attraction, was the song. Okay, but and then Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. I like Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. It's hard to be upset about that one because that one's just a clone of the ride in Paris. So it's kind of hard to be mad about that one. You could make a valid point that Walt Disney World could have added some animatronics, but this was a product of the Chapek regime, so you knew that was not going to happen. But I mean, Paris had worked out everything about Remy, and then when we got it, everything was worked out. Everything was worked out. So, the story, you understand the story all the way through. There's no song in Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, so you miss that. There's no animatronics, so that's another bad thing. But overall, as an attraction, it is a step above. It's not a lot better. It's not a lot better, but it's a step above Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Okay? In my book, it is a step above Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Okay? You come off of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, you have people come off that ride and, people, you have no idea. You have no idea what just happened. Did you have fun on the attraction? No, I missed like 2/3 of what happened. Okay? I had no idea what was happening, half the time in that attraction. Okay? But for some reason, people love that ride. I don't know why, but they do. They think it's the greatest ride ever. And every time I go on it and I ride the attraction, I look around and people think that that's like the greatest thing ever. And it's like, I don't know what you're comparing it to, but it's not. It is not. Okay? So, the rides that were built under Chapek were, cheap, and they were, they were IP driven, they were cheap, they were, anything that they could do to cut cost on anything, that was what they were going to do. That was what they were going to do. Okay? And look at Toy Story Land in that fact. Look at Toy Story Land. That is a Bob Chapek land. Okay? Whereas Galaxy's Edge is more of a kind of a Bob Iger. It was kind of split. Bob Iger and Bob Chapek, kind of, worked on that. But Toy Story Land is really more Bob Chapek-ish than Galaxy's Edge is. Okay? I walk around Toy Story Land and at no point do I feel like I'm in Andy's backyard. At no point do I feel like I'm in another world. Okay? It looks cheap. It's just not, it's not, it could have been more. It could have been more, and it should have been more. Okay? Now, Slinky Dog Dash, that's a different story. I like Slinky Dog Dash, okay? The problem I have with Slinky is sight lines, okay? You're not supposed to see two different lands at, two different times, okay? So that's the problem I have with Slinky is, the sight lines. The overall story of the attraction, the attraction itself is fine, but it's just the sight lines I have a problem with Slinky Dog, okay? And then Galaxy's Edge. You get a little bit of that Chapek, you get a little bit sense of the Chapek regime in that because, you're in line for Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, and you turn, is it your right or left? I can't remember. I can't remember if it's the right or the left, so excuse me, but I look out the window because there's windows you can see out of, and you're at you go up ramps and stuff, so you're up pretty high. You're up not really high, but you're up I'd say a decent amount. And I look and I see Slinky Dog. I'm like, what? What? So I see, you can barely tell it. You can barely tell. But if you look, you can see parts of the Slinky Dog track coaster. Okay? And I'm like, well, now I know I'm not in Galaxy's Edge. Okay? That pulls me out. I know I'm no longer in Galaxy's Edge. Okay? And the same thing with Toy Story Land. Okay? It's like, you get on Slinky and it's like, at no point do I feel like I'm in Andy's backyard. Because, I see Galaxy's Edge on one side, and then I turn, and then I see, the Tower of Terror looking right at me. So, at no point do I feel like I'm in Andy's backyard. Okay? It's obviously better in Galaxy's Edge because there's nothing there's nothing obstructing your view. You don't see, and Grand Avenue is right next to Galaxy's Edge. So you see nothing of, Grand Avenue. You see nothing of, Toy Story Land unless you're in line for Millennium Falcon. But you don't see, you don't see what, you all the time you're looking at what you're supposed to be looking at, is my point, okay? And I know I went off on a rant on that, but I think that's the difference between the good regime and the bad regime. The good regime is, we're going to keep you in this land as long as we can, and the bad regime is I don't care. I really don't give a rat's ass, okay? I don't really care about sight lines. I don't care, what you see and what you don't see, okay? And what immerses you and what doesn't immerse you, okay? So, in that effect, I think that, the Iger regime really understands that much better than the Chapek regime did. So, but you'll have to let me know in the comments, okay? Let me know in the comments how you feel, okay? Look, now, I'm going to remind everyone again, both regimes have made mistakes. Both regimes have made mistakes, okay? I pointed out, different things, what I like about the Bob Iger regime, what I didn't like, I pointed out what I really don't like about the Bob Chapek regime. Nothing that Bob Chapek did is good, okay? He basically came in and ruined the theme parks. That's what he did. He basically came in and ruined the theme parks, okay? There is nothing, if I were to say to somebody, what good did Bob Chapek do? I don't think anybody would be able to come up with one good thing that he did. Okay? Whereas, Bob Iger, he got to, he helped build Galaxy's Edge, and he helped the company get into the streaming industry. He puts more money into the theme parks, and he gets it. He gets it. Overall, he gets it. Okay? There are some things that, I disagree with him about, but I agree with him a lot more than I ever did with Chapek. Okay? Nothing good came out of the Chapek regime. Okay? Nothing good came out of that regime. Okay? If someone wants to point something out that was good that came out of that regime, please let me know. Please let me know, but nothing off the top of my head was good. Nothing good came out of that regime. So you're just, but please let me know. Please, let me know in the comments, but everyone that I've talked to, just, we're all in agreement that Bob Chapek was one of the worst things that ever happened to the Walt Disney Company. Okay? But a lot of people, they're criticizing Bob Iger. But a lot of the things they're criticizing Bob Iger about is not what he had control over. The things that they're complaining about with Bob Iger is what Chapek was doing. Okay? Now, Bob Iger could have turned that around. He could have turned that around, but he didn't. He didn't. Okay? But in my opinion, Bob Iger is doing a hell of a lot better of a job at running the Walt Disney Company than Bob Chapek ever did. So, please let me know in the comments how you feel. But if you have any other examples that I might have missed, please comment below. I'm interested. I'm interested in hearing from you folks what you have to think. But please don't start any fights. Okay, please don't start any fights or anything. But I'm interested I'm interested to hear what you folks have to say. So I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. So I thank you guys very much for watching this video. If you like this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm up to 70 subscribers. Thank you very much. It does my heart good that so many people care about this company as I do. I will always love the Walt Disney Company, no matter what. Okay? Unless they do something really, 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 really stupid, I will always love the Walt Disney Company. Okay? So, again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel for more content. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. You guys have a great rest of your afternoon. I thank you guys very much. You folks keep each other safe and healthy, and we will see you real soon.